Seguidamente le cedo la palabra a la docente e investigadora, la doctora Griselda Arrieta Espinosa, del Centro de Investigación en Biología Celular y Molecular de la UCR, quien tiene el honor de presentarnos a nuestro expositor, al doctor Asmund Asdal.
Buenos días a todos, a los distinguidos miembros de la mesa y a todas las personas presentes y que también en este momento nos están siguiendo a través de la página de Facebook. Para mí es un honor el día de hoy presentarles a el expositor, al doctor Asmund Asdal, quien es de profesión, está especializado en horticultura y ecología. Desde hace 25 años, el doctor Asdal ha trabajado en proyectos relacionados con conservación de recursos fitogenéticos de plantas, vinculado con a nivel nacional y también a nivel regional en Noruega. En 1990 fue el coordinador de una estación experimental que en este momento es conocida como el Instituto de Investigación en Bioeconomía en Noruega. Entre el 2000 y 2015, el doctor Asdal ha estado a cargo del Programa Nacional Noruego de Conservación y Uso de Recursos Fitogenéticos de Plantas, que se conoce actualmente como el Centro de Recursos Fitogenéticos de Noruega, NordGen por sus siglas. Y ha estado involucrado precisamente desde el 2015 en la coordinación y de operación y manejo de la bóveda global de semillas en Svalbard. Es entonces para mí un honor cederle la palabra, doctor Asdal. Thank you very much for being here, and it will be our pleasure to listen carefully to your talk. So, please.
So, well, thanks again for inviting me to this conference. It's very important for us at the Global Seed Vault that the knowledge about why we are taking care of genetic resources and what we are doing in gene banks and also at the Seed Vault is well known, especially among young people, especially among students. So this is a very nice opportunity for me to explain about the Seed Vault. I'm working at the Nordic Genetic Resource Center, which is a knowledge center and a gene bank for the Nordic countries. I will use the first part of my talk to explain about genetic resources and why we are doing it. I hope not all of it is known by you from before, so there is something new to learn. Seeds is the main topic here, and seeds are actually our most important food source. It's a perfect structure for survival of plants through unfavorable parts of the year, seasons. Seeds can be stored. Seeds are very nutritious. It's adapted for modern farming. We can develop farming industry and methods, machinery when we have these seeds. Seeds are DNA storage, and seeds are also constantly providing us with new genetic combinations, which is actually the basic condition for development of agriculture, development of new plant varieties, and so on. And we mainly eat seeds. You know this, of course. About 60% of what we eat are rice, wheat, and maize. And some pictures just showing the diversity of forms, shapes, and colors of seeds. I realized when I came here, I have been visiting your country for almost 2 weeks now, and I understand that pictures of our Nordic seeds would probably not impress you much because you have this very huge diversity of seeds and plants. But for me, all these different forms of seeds is also an inspiration when working with seeds. Well, this is the only picture showing animals in this talk. And why do I show you this? It's because I wanted to explain to you what are genetic resources and genetic diversity. This picture shows basically 3 individuals of wolves. In the nature, you find only the wolf to the left. This is the form of this species we find in nature. But this species found in the nature contain the genes the man needed to develop different breeds of dogs. So I find it very amazing that the genes making it possible to develop these different breeds of dogs actually are present already in wild forms, in this case as a wolf. And the same is the case. The same is the case for plants. You don't find the plants we produce, the plants we cultivate, you don't find them in nature, but you find the genes in the wild plants that were the ancestors to the crop plants. So this is maize originating from this area. We do not find the cultivated form of maize in nature, but we do find the genes in the wild plant Tripsacum over there. And for brassicas, this is a common vegetable in Europe, and we do not find any of these cabbage, Brussels sprouts, kohlrabi, kale, broccoli, cauliflower vegetables. We do not find them in nature, but all genes making it possible to develop and breed new varieties of these vegetables are found in the wild cabbage growing on the shores in around the Mediterranean Ocean in southern Europe. And for wheat, we do not find cultivated wheat in the nature, but we find this wild plant, emmer wheat, and we find the goat grass, egelops. And at one stage in the history, 10,000 years ago perhaps, these 2 plants crossed occasionally, spontaneously in a field in the Middle East, and the common wheat, the plant that we cultivate today, was discovered and appeared. And this plant show the squarehead master is an old variety from the UK, 100 years ago, shows the vigor and the yield potential 100 years ago. And to the right, we see a new modern variety showing the potential we could find in the genes in the wild plants, making it possible to breed better, more yielding, resistant varieties, making it possible to increase the yield of agricultural plants. So the history is, in brief, this. We can find the wild plants in the nature, very low yield. They are adapted to surviving in the nature. Farmers discovered that these plants could be also cultivated. They saved the best seeds for the next season and developed these land races through thousands of years. And then modern breeding took over 150 years ago, and modern cultivars were developed. And today we conserve wild plants related to crops. We conserve all the land races that we are able to rescue from this extinction. And we conserve in gene banks also the modern cultivars that are not in use anymore, because year by year, more new cultivars are explored, and the cultivars we used 10, 15 years ago, they are not used anymore, and we have to conserve them in gene banks. The pioneer of gene banking was this man. He is a Russian called Nikolai Vavilov. He discovered that all these old varieties, land races used by farmers, they disappeared. And he realized that these genotypes were very important. They could have genes that could be used in future breeding. And he established the first gene bank in the world in St. Petersburg. He also discovered the global centers of original plants. Where do these crop plants originate from? So he traveled around also in this part of the world, and he made a map more or less like this. Where do the crop plants originate from? And from this, as you already know, maize and beans are coming from this Central America region, potato, tomato, cocoa, tobacco from southern part of the US. And number 4 here is called the Fertile Crescent, where agriculture, civilization, stable settlement is expected to have emerged from, and we find a lot of wild material of crop plants there. I had the pleasure to visit Vavilov's office a couple of years ago. He died during the Second World War, but the office is kept as it was when he died. And the gene bank is still in this beautiful building in the middle of St. Petersburg. So why do we need this crop diversity? We need it to sustain and increase food production. You know that we need to adapt agriculture to climate change. We have new diseases coming. We need resistant genes to develop new varieties resistant to these pests. Our population is growing, and plant genetic resources is a raw material that breeders and scientists need to produce new plant crop varieties to increase and develop agriculture and secure the future food production. And then we are coming to gene banks all over the world. Most countries have at least one national gene banks. Many countries have many gene banks, and they conserve the genetic resources, we could say, relevant for their region, for their country, for their national agriculture. So FAO have registered approximately 1,700 different institutes having seed collections in the world. And there are some international centers, and we have regional gene bank. My gene bank, Norgen, is a regional gene bank for the Nordic countries. We have national gene banks. We also have private NGOs. In total, all these gene banks, according to estimates given by FAO, we have 2.2 million unique seed samples conserved in the world's gene banks. This number will certainly increase because we find more material in the wild that are related to crops. Plant breeders produce new varieties and new breeding material, and we also still have local varieties still used by farmers, land races that have not been conserved so far in gene banks. So the collections of gene banks will hopefully increase and in the end cover the total amount of genetic diversity that we have. This is from the Nordic Gene Bank. It was established in 1979. It was a center for genetic resources in plants, animals, domestic animals, and forest from 2008. We have about 35,000 samples of around 500 species that are important for the Nordic agriculture. This is a map showing the international centers. We have one large center for wheat and maize in Mexico, for tropical beans, for instance, in Colombia, and potatoes in Peru. We have Ikara as a well-known center. We have ITA in Nigeria, ICRISAT in India, and the Rice Center in the Philippines. And in total around 15 centers, and these are keeping huge diversity. They have huge gene banks, and they take care of genetic resources, we could say, on behalf of the global population. So to Svalbard, where we have this seed vault, you can see a map here. This is Norway, and Svalbard is here, North Pole is here, and you see Greenland, and this is the northern part of Northern America, here, and this is a map of Svalbard, and the global seed vault is in this town, Longyearbyen, in the middle of this archipelago in Svalbard. Just showing you a couple of pictures from Svalbard. During winter, it's covered with snow. It could be minus 25 degrees. We have reindeers in the street, polar bear. We can polar bear, which is a very dangerous animal. So that's why I'm having a gun there and I'm going outside the village. But in the summer, we can also find some flowers and straw and grass that the animals could feed on. The Longyearbyen is an old mining village. 200, 300 years ago, only trappers and hunters went there for hunting polar bears, reindeer, polar foxes, and so on. But 100 years ago, I discovered coal there. So still there are a bit some coal mining, but this is going to end in a very few years. So now it has been turning into a more touristic place. Some other functionalities are there, but today it's based on with coal mining. It's education and university, science, research stations there, and also tourism. So a lot of tourists are coming. You're well known to tourism here and to Svalbard society. It means a lot for the economy. About 2,000 people, inhabitants, are living in this Longyearbyen, and tourism is meaning more and more for the society. It's a vulnerable place also, so we are a bit concerned about how tourism affect the nature in Svalbard, as you are doing here in Costa Rica, of course. So the history of conserving seeds in Svalbard started in 1984. My gene bank, the Nordic Gene Bank, was looking for a place to keep copies of what? It's needed? No. Yes, the Nordic Gene Bank was looking for a place to store copies of the Nordic seed collections. And as you know, seeds store better when they are frozen. So most gene banks, they keep their seeds in frozen storage halls, freezers, and so on. And Nordic Gene Bank decided to put copies of the Nordic seed collection in a coal mine in Svalbard, where we have permafrost. So seeds are put in there in 1984 in a steel container, and this gained a lot of interest in international media. So this is a picture from the steel container quite deep inside the coal mine, where there is permanently -3, -4 degrees through the year. The seeds stayed frozen without any energy supplies, which was a perfect place for storing copies of the Nordic seed collection as a security. And then the idea of having a seed vault for the entire world came up. The reason is, of course, that many gene banks have lost their seeds. Parts of seed collections or totally all the samples in their seed collections has gone lost because of wars, floodings, natural disasters, conflicts, lack of resources. So during the 2000s, it was made a report, would it be possible for Norway to build a seed vault that could host samples, copy samples from all gene banks all over the world. And Norwegian government was supported by FAO and their Commission for Genetic Resources, and a lot of gene banks and countries said, yes, if you build a seed vault like this, we will be happy to store copies of our seed collections in the seed vault. And it was built, it was announced in June 2006, and it was opened in February 2008. So all members, all participants to the ceremony was invited to carry a seed box into the seed vault. And I was there, and I got a seed box from Mexico, from the International Center for Wheat and Maize in Mexico. And I think the seed vault so far has received a lot of positive feedback for this project. Our UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon was there visiting us in 2008, and he said this, the seed vault is a gift to humanity and a symbol of peace, which we appreciated a lot, and we use this citation a lot when we are informing about the seed vault. FAO has a document called the Seed Bank Standards, and recommendation for storing copies of the seeds in the seed vault is written into the gene bank standards. So what are the objectives? In the beginning, the objective was very simple. We offered a safe place to store duplicates of seeds that are stored in gene banks all over the world. Quite soon we realized that the seed vault here gained a lot of international attention, and we understood that the seed vault could be used as an icon, as a symbol of the importance of taking care of genetic resources. So we receive a lot of media, politicians and others visiting us, and we try as best as we can to explain to the public that it's really important to take care of genetic resources, and we try to encourage politicians to support their gene banks and allocate budget to take care of gene bank collections. So why Svalbard? It's according to Norwegian commitments that we contribute to the global efforts to take care of seeds. Svalbard is also a well-suited place. It's still permafrost in the soils there. It's a good remote and safe place. We have a good infrastructure there. There are police, for instance. There are people looking after the construction. It's an airport there. And not at least, gene banks all over the world, east and west, countries in the north, countries in the south, rich and poor countries, actually trust that Norway will take good care of these seeds. The seed vault is not in a coal mine, it's built in a solid rock. It's 130 meters above sea level. The permafrost provides around -3, -4. And in addition, we have artificially cooling there, making the temperature, bringing the temperature down to -18, which is the same temperature that gene banks use for conserving their collections. And it's also in accordance with the gene bank standards provided by FAO. And there are a high level of security there, surveillance systems and alarms and so on. So the organization behind the seed vault today is that the seed vault is owned by the Norwegian government, which is also guaranteeing for the yearly maintenance and the future liability of the seed vault. We work together with the international organization Global Crop Diversity Trust, which is supporting gene banks all over the world, these international centers, gene bank, and they also support the management budget of the seed vault. They also allocate money to assist gene banks in poor countries to be able to multiply and send seeds to the seed vault. Norgen is my organization. We are responsible for the management and operation of the seed vault, all actions related to seeds. Statsbygg is a Norwegian body taking care of the construction, and we have an international advisory panel that oversees the operations. We had some construction improvements in 2018-19. Some of you may have heard that there were some problems with water in the tunnel, but now this has been, we have built a new watertight tunnel and more secure systems. So now we think that this is 100% secure place for these seeds. All gene banks that are depositing seeds have to sign a depositor agreement. The main conditions are that it's free of charge to have seeds there. There are no transfer of legal ownership. So the gene banks that send the seeds to the seed vault, they are the owners of the seeds. No one have access to the seeds. The seeds are only taken out if the gene bank that owns the seeds should need them. If they lose their own seeds, they can get the seeds back. The plant genetic resources stored in the seed vault should be available for breeding and plant research. And yes, I can. Extra safety sample is, we recommend that an extra sample is conserved at another place, another gene bank. And it's also, we don't have any labs at the seed vault. No one works there actually. So the gene banks themselves have to kind of monitor the viability of the seeds. And they do this by testing the seeds they have at home. Remember that they have the main part of the seeds they have deposited in the seed vaults they have in their own gene bank, and when they regularly test these seeds, they would also know when the seeds in the seed vault has to be replaced. We organize so-called seed vault openings every year, 3 or 4 or 5. We inform the gene banks that if you have seeds you want to send to Svalbard, please send them at these occasions. And the gene banks, they prepare what we call accession lists, a list with some basic information about all seed samples they want to send. That means that the whole system is very transparent. Everyone can see which seeds are in there, from which gene bank, which species, the accession number, accession name, and so on. And seeds are sent to Svalbard in time for these seed vault openings. And we go to Svalbard and bring the seeds into the seed vault. We update the seed portal, which is an online database accessible for all of you. And we confirm to the gene bank, thanks a lot for your cooperation. The seeds are well in place and conserved and safe in the seed vault. Some statistics here. In total, 1.2 million samples have been deposited since 2008. I will tell you more about the only gene bank that wanted seeds to be returned. Currently, we have 1.1 million there, representing almost 6,000 different species, more than 1,100 genera, and we have today 89 depositor institutes, 89 different gene banks institutes having seed collections have deposited seeds in the seed vault. This is a public webpage. Any one of you can enter and find out which seeds are there. The numbers, species, genera, countries, and so forth. And this shows the increase of seed samples that have been deposited through the years up to now. So it started with around 300,000 when it was opened in 2008, and we are very happy to see that year by year there has come more seeds to the seed vault, and more gene banks have joined what we can call the family of gene bank that use the seed vault, take advantage of the offer. So crops in the seed vault. Today we have more than 200,000 different genotypes, samples of wheat, 170,000 samples of rice, 90,000 samples of barley, and you can see those others between 50,000 and 10,000 samples of beans, maize, vigna beans, soybeans, chickpeas, and so on. And on the other end of this graph, we have crops, species that are represented with just 1 or 2 or 3 different genotypes. So it's a huge diversity, but of course the most important crops in the world are best represented. The seeds have been deposited by international centers. I showed you the map. So 2/3 of the seeds have been deposited by these around 10 different international centers, and 1/3 by national gene banks, a smaller part by regional gene banks as Norgen, and we also have a couple of NGOs. A map again showing where all these gene banks are located, also pointing out where Svalbard is related to this world map. So some information about Costa Rica. All of you can enter the seed portal and see which samples are in the seed vault coming from Costa Rican gene banks. So 2 Costa Rica-based institutes have deposited seeds in the seed vault. It's a university here, and it's CATI in Turrialba, which I was happy to visit yesterday. The university here has deposited seeds as 2 occasions. Arturo was here in Svalbard in, I think it was 2015, depositing seeds of wild potato relatives, and Griselda was there 2 years ago, depositing seeds of 3 different species of rice. And Kati has deposited 1,300 accessions of 51 species, and at several locations since the seed vault opened. Here is a happy face in Svalbard in 2020 when we had event, a seed summit at the Seed Vault. This is actually our Norwegian Prime Minister handing over diplomas to all gene banks that deposited seeds at that occasion. So this is from Arturo visited the Seed Vault in 2015. He was there with the potato seeds. And this is a kind of summary you can find on our seed portal, where it's shown which species that have been deposited from the university here. So you can see 6 different species of Solanum and 3 different species of rice. And here are the boxes, seed boxes from Kati inside the Seed Vault. Arturo can also be seen there, and if I got the names right, the Felipe Arauz from the Costa Rican Ministry of Agriculture was there, and also Jose Campos from Kati was there at that occasion. And William was there in 2018 when we celebrated the 10-year anniversary for the Seed Vault. We had a ceremony where all the representatives were invited to pour seeds into this seed cylinder there, which was kind of milestone, a symbol when the Seed Vault project was announced by our Prime Minister in 2006. So we still use this as a kind of symbolic structure. And William also carried 1 box of seeds into the Seed Vault in February 2018 with seeds from Kati. This is a list showing accessions by genera and number of species from Kati. You can see a lot of different species and crops here. This is a list showing which countries are represented, which countries are the countries of origin for the seeds that have been deposited by Kati. You see that there are must be around more than 20 different countries, even Denmark and even Uzbekistan. So Kati has a very diverse genetic resource gene bank with material from many parts of the world. Some more details from the Seed Vault. We have 3 chambers there. Each chamber can store 1 million seed samples. The first chamber is filled up, and we have taken the second chamber in use. Yes, ICARDA is the International Center for for Agricultural Research in Dry Areas. Previously, this gene bank had its genetic resource headquarters and the gene bank in Aleppo in Syria, and you have of course heard what happened there. ICARDA has had to realize that their gene bank was inaccessible and partly destroyed because of the war, and they decided to establish new gene banks in Lebanon and in Morocco. And luckily they had deposited seed samples in the Seed Vault from 2008 until 2014. And we sent back all these 116,000 samples at 3 occasions in 2015, 17 and 19. And they used the samples they have luckily deposited in the Seed Vault to establish new gene banks there. And already now they have been able to multiply and send more than 100,000 samples back to the Seed Vault. So this is kind of sad story, of course, a tragedy that this happened in Syria, but it really illustrates the value of having a Seed Vault like this. If a gene bank, an institute lose their seeds, which many gene banks already have been doing, then they can get the seeds back from the Seed Vault. A couple of photos when we took out the seed samples. I could also just inform about the project that we have. You all know that databases, IT people think that databases can live forever, but we all know that data in databases can be changed, it can be lost. And we are therefore introducing the accession data on nanofilm. It's a kind of microfilm, a further developed microfilm that can last for more than 500 years. So we are printing all these accession data on film and putting the data inside the seed vault. So actually, this is linked here with a magnifier. You can see what is written. And the seeds and the genetic resources are important, but also the information that is related to the seeds is very important. The value of seeds is lower when you don't know what it is. So that is one of our new projects. Yeah. There's a lot of web pages giving more information about the seed vault. I think the easiest way is to Google and you find the different web pages by the ministry, by us in Nordic, by Crop Trust. And some pictures showing this is how gene banks are conserving seeds. They dry the seeds to a very low water content and they put them into these sealed, watertight seed bags, put them into seed boxes, send them by flights to Svalbard. We scan all the seed boxes at the airport security system. We do not open the boxes, but it's important to know what's inside, or it is important to know that there are nothing else but seeds inside. So that's why we scan all boxes. And when the picture from the scanning is like this, we know that everything's okay. We never found any other items than seeds in any boxes. But we want to be 100% sure. Then we drive the truck with the seed boxes to the seed vault, open the doors, bring the seeds inside. We put labels on all boxes, showing position in the shelves, showing the gene bank, the number, seed box number, and some basic data, and related also to our database. This is a low-tech storage warehouse, so we do not have very sophisticated machinery. It's all done by handwork. We bring the boxes into the shelves, and it's amazing. I'm approaching the end of my presentation now, but I wanted to show you this picture, which shows the diversity of seed boxes. It's thousands of people around the world that are producing these seeds. They handle the seeds, prepare them, dry them, pack them, send them to Svalbard. And there is a huge diversity of crops, genetic resources inside the boxes. And the boxes are also it's encouraging to see all the diversity also on this level. And here in the shelves, we have seed boxes from these boxes are from North Korea. I believe not many of you have seen items coming from North Korea. We have seeds from South Korea. We have seeds from the United States. We have seeds from Ukraine and Russia side by side on the shelves. So actually, despite conflicts around the world, scientists, at least also governments, actually supporting this project. They are working together to conserve the genetic diversity of plants that we need to secure our future food supplies. So it's very encouraging to see that this project is there are not many people around the world talking negatively about this project. So it's very nice to be a part of this. So I think that was the end of my talk. So thank you very much. Any questions, if you have time? No time.